Who knows, you know?
Yeah, life's strange sometimes. Life can be strange. But so the confession that I wanted to make is that befriending Lawrence Woolsey, second to getting locked in the bomb shelter with Lisa Jakub. That was like when I was like, this kid has it all. He's now friends with a director of monster movies, and he before you know, this is how young and stupid I was. I was like, he'll probably let him wear the man costume, you know, because the other guy,
exactly.
the other guy didn't.
Part of the experience.
Yeah, and now he's in the room with Lisa Jakub, played by or who plays the character Sandra, and who couldn't be more sexy in that she's very hippie and rebel throughout this. Like the one of my favorite scenes, obviously, is when they do a Cuban missile drill. They do a missile drill, and they're all out in the hallway putting their hands on their head. And of course, now we all know that that's silly. What is that going to do? Nothing. But in the 60s, and having this girl screaming, I'm not doing that, that's stupid. Right out of the gate, I was like, oh, I like her. Even at 10 years old, I was like, oh, she's my crush. She is my crush.
Yeah. No, excuse me, I'm having a coughing fit. No, she carries herself incredibly well in the movie, obviously. I mean, obviously she had a dynamic personality that went on to be, you know, favorable in the like just featured through 90s teenage hearts, you know, Matinee being the least known of them, but Independence Day and Miss Doubtfire being very prominent. I think everybody grew up with those. And she has that kind of dynamic personality. And yeah, everything about it is, when I say it's a young kid's, you know, dream, he meets his favorite filmmaker, like a monster flick filmmaker. He gets to work with him and be engaged. He effortlessly meets the awesome girl.
Yeah, effortlessly is right too, because he sees her in the hall freaking out, and then he just approaches her and just like, hey, I heard you said back there.
By the way, just stares at her in the most in the way that I think most of us would, like, right, you know, right, when we're enthralled and attracted, you know, we're just like, what do I say? What do I say, girl? What? And she like handles it well, and then like and then, you know, it really all comes down to this, like, you know, say what you want about the movie, you know, the actual movie, like the teenage focused love tale of cinema. It all comes down to these little moments that really sell it. Like, you know, some of the kid actors are fine. Like, some of the dynamics are, you know, overwritten, or you've seen before. They're kind of tropish. But when she is this rebel gal who's really into it, you know, socially conscious, sitting next to him, and when she gets scared in the movie and grabs his arm, you do not tell me you've never felt exactly what that guy felt in that moment. Yeah. Like, I mean, whether you are the girl grabbing the arm, or if there's a guy grabbing your arm if you're a girl. I mean, I know plenty of guys who get scared about these movies or these silly horror films, and they react in that way. But there's such an electric energy, and, you know, it's captured very naturally and honestly by Dante. Like, it's those moments that I think he's really tuning into. Is he's trying to, like, really get into your cinema loving heart and say, this is what movies are all about. It's about sharing this experience. It's about meeting people in this experience. It's about connecting with those people in this experience. And you know, and maybe it's because the movie did it, or maybe it's just because of the environment of it. Like, who knows? But there's something special about that environment, and it's the movies that make it. And, you know, considering that we're living in a time where more people are streaming, more people are, you know, having home entertainment systems, less and less people are really having the special feeling of going to a movie matinee or just the theater. I feel like this movie is kind of important at this time, because I do too, man.
Yes, well said. It's in my notes. It's very important. I agree. Like, from even top to bottom, dealing with the stress of this crisis that the country is about, or, you know, thinks that they're about to endure. Like, dude, did you happen to notice the we kind of hold the camera at so when the panic is breaking out at the grocery store, we even have like a slow pause of like almost like a as this woman takes like 19 rolls of toilet paper, and I'm just sitting there going, Only if they knew that 17 years later, we were going to be doing that exactly like that.
Well, it's so interesting because I think there's something timeless about hysteria. Like, like we like to think that we evolve. Like, we like to think this. Obviously, you've been on my show. You know how I think. I am a cynic when it comes to people. And hysteria, I think, is just enrooted, I think, into the irrationality of the public. And there's something so eerie about that scene to watch that and go, what did we just experience? Like a year ago, I live in Burbank, California. The Burbank Costco was one of the first sites of just panic buying hysteria because of COVID. And so there was something so true about this. And it's like, you can't say this movie's prophetic, but I think it's tapping into something about the human condition when they are faced with really prominent fear, and how do people react to fear? And people do not react to fear very well. And I like that in the cinema, what they're trying to juxtapose here is that Joe Dante and the William Castles, the Russ Meyers, the Roger Cormans, they're saying fear is a good thing, but we can channel it to productivity and entertainment and funnel it. But look at fear in the real world. It's dangerous, it's survivalist, it's dog eat dog, and it considers nobody. And so there's an interesting dynamic with playing out in the movie because of that. Yeah,
and actually Woolsey is somewhat prophetic when he says, what does he tell Gene? Keep your eyes open. I think. Yeah. Keep your eyes open. And what he's referring to earlier in the film, I'm getting another call from a 419 number. Who call? Nobody calls anymore. Shit.
No, it's a salesperson.
It's got to be. I mean, who? It doesn't matter. But anyway, he tells him keep his eyes open. Now, earlier in the film, they have a conversation, and he's talking about during the film that you need to essentially experience the film, because in the end, you know that it's all right. But it also does, like you said, a juxtaposition to how people are dealing with the hysteria, which is not. And I love that. Is very interesting what you said too. Like, I do think that it's something to explore, at least. Like, how is it that it's no different from 100 years ago to 80 years ago to 50 to 20?
It just has a different angle, but it's all the same emotion.
Right. And I agree, dude. Like, I again, like, this is why you come on the show, like, a perspective that I hadn't even considered. Like, well, of course, like, I saw, like, hey, well, shit's no different. Like, we're still doing the same shit. But I do think that he did, it is very intentional to be like, look at, like, this is what people do. This is was it a scene at Costco? Did you happen to drive by and see the scene at Costco? Or
no, I avoided that. I avoided it. You know, like any sensible, rational human being, I was like, you know, I will be able to find these products in a week or two. Like you don't have to do this. You don't have to panic buy. Our entire infrastructure is not built like that, where we will have shortages, but not for very long, because there is a rapid response time based off the economy we have. And so I was a rational human being during that time.
Good. You know what else I liked in this film, Kyle? You know what else I liked is that we tossed in John Sayles and Dick Miller.
You're bringing on some of my favorite things about the movie. Yeah. I love one, I love John Sayles, and he comes from the same background as Joe Dante, so I love that little partnership. You know, John Sayles would show up in, like, Jonathan Demme's, like, Something Wild in, like, 1986, and, like, he just has these little bit parts, and I love it. And Dick Miller is a legend.
Yeah.
He's just a legend from the Russ Meyer and Roger Corman era, and I just he is just fantastic.
And he coined the term gremlins. That's how they came to be in the movie. He says the gremlins, you know, in his tractor.
Yeah, that's true.
But I loved obviously I loved seeing them, but I also loved the angle that was written for them. Like, when you first see this film, you're just like, oh, these motherfuckers. And then you find out. So, long story short, audience, is that they are protesting the movie, the Dick Miller and John Sayles. They are protesting the movie because they think it's lowbrow. It's not for the kids. They shouldn't see it. It's going to lead to bad things. Only do you find out that our main character Gene is so into horror films. He's like, wait a minute, I think I've seen one of them motherfuckers before. I think I've seen that. Let me check here. And you come to find out he noticed Dick Miller, who was in, I forget the fucking movie. Shit, I should have wrote it down because it was hilarious looking, because there's like a giant like brain with
something about eating brains.
Yeah, because there's like a brain with eyes like hovering over him as he apprehensively eats. But to see them written, and you find out that they're actually, it's all a bit. Like, it's just to raise a stir, which will get even more people to come, which is weird because, like, it's completely contradictory to say the hysteria portion, but yet in its essence, it's the same, right? Like, oh, we can't have the, kid this, that, and the other. But, motherfuck the missiles, we got to stop. But it doesn't matter anyway because they're working for Woolsey, and that's how our relationship is formed. Then all of a sudden now you have the wet dream for a monster. Oh, hey, by the way, I noticed those guys out front, they used to work for you. And he's like, huh? What? Who? No, he didn't.
Oh, you know your stuff, kid.
Yeah.
I'll bring you under my wing. It's I like what you're getting into, because actually this is an aspect that's not drilled home a lot in the movie. I mean, obviously it's a feature, and obviously it's commenting on something where actually PR stunt. It's like a PR stunt. It's like, I'm going to invent controversy to propel my movie as something that needs to be seen. That this is shocking. It's shocking. And not in good nature, that it is rebellious to the cultural spirit. And what's interesting is that's a dynamic that people do, that when they take it's obviously in the movie it's fake, but when they take it even seriously, how about you look at like Tipper Gore and the parents against like the music industry in the 80s, like where they were trying to decide what was good for your children. They would have parental advisory and on discs and have censored versions, demand censored versions for their children. And so there's interesting because you almost created more of an interest in the controversial subject matter based off your protesting. And it's interesting because I think that can be applied to even today, where we have, these various forms of cancel culture on both sides of divided angles. And yet it propels like forward in one camp. If one camp is against it, the other camp will propel it in a monetary sense. I mean, you see this kind of people getting into each other's corners, if you will. And I feel like people are doing that intentionally because they know that they can rile people's emotions, direct them, focus them. And that's really part of the idea of hysteria and utilizing people's irrationality against them. And I'm a very cynical person. So when I see anybody putting against the idea of something that shouldn't be watched, or that it's against the good taste of people, I'm already skeptical about the angle.
Dude, it's funny you bring that up. I don't know if you. So I did a fucking triple feature the other day. I just decided to do 3 movies and 3 shows all in the same day, and the second one, the only reason I did it was because I was offended, which dude, you got to try real hard to offend me, but I was offended. So I did this one with. I
can't even remember the last time I was offended. So,
dude, me neither. Yeah, me neither. Until that point where I was like legitimately, not like I went, like not the type of offended where you go home at night and you just think about it. But this one, so you watch as many movies as I do. We just, sometimes it gets to the point where it's, becomes mundane to an extent. And I had watched so much and I was critiquing so much, had done so many shows. I was like, I need a mindless action film. So
Sure.
I looked to my Dragon Dynasty. I saw only one that has not been unopened. I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, I need to watch Protege with Daniel Wu. So, and it's got Andy Lau, Daniel Wu, it's got Louis Koo.